You're looking at one of the strangest and most powerful inventions in human history. Your friendly neighborhood supermarket. A person living a century ago would be gobsmacked by a modern grocery store. More kinds of food than they'd ever seen, wrapped in colorful packages and priced to move. But few things about this place are what they seem. Some of the store's fresh produce was picked a year ago. Other products were made possible by modern-day slavery. Every aisle is shaped by invisible global forces. I'm Shane Campbell-Staton, and this is the human footprint of the grocery store. To understand how real grocery stores really work, it helps to visit one that isn't real. Welcome to Omega Mart.
We're just surrounded by weirdness and absurdity all the time, but it's like so normalized.
Meet artist Emily Montoya. She's one of the brains behind this immersive art installation. At first glance, Omega Mart feels like any other grocery store. But just like in a real grocery store, look closer and nothing is as it seems.
We're trying really hard, but like real supermarkets are way more bizarre than anything we could even dream up.
Omega Mart's surreal take on the grocery store feels absurd at first, but like any good satire, it reveals the uncanny in the familiar.
You start to sort of ask questions as like, well, how did all these things get here?
That is a good question.
How did we get there? I think you really have to go back.
Few people know more about the supermarket or how we shopped before it than journalist Ben Lohr. We spent the morning sampling Brooklyn's delis and butchers.
The pre-grocery store was very disaggregated. You would go to the butcher, you would go to the general store for dry goods, you would go to the baker.
And everywhere you went, clerks would serve you whatever items you asked for, which honestly doesn't sound half bad. But in 1916, a man named Clarence Saunders opened America's first self-serving store, a Piggly Wiggly in Memphis. His idea was to cut labor costs by requiring shoppers to select their own goods. But customers actually preferred this new freedom of choice. His sales skyrocketed, and competitors took note.
And then there was this gentleman, Michael Cullen, 1930. Basically, he just says, we can take this setup where people can touch the goods, and we can supersize it. By kind of both physically blowing up the footprint of the store and also cutting down on staff. What we can do is reduce price and just make up that difference in total profit based on the volume of goods. And this is the supermarket, and it transforms everything.
As they grew, supermarkets added fresh produce, bakeries, and butchers. Before long, you could buy everything you needed in one trip. Today, there are more than 1 million supermarkets globally. For many of us, they feel commonplace, but they reveal something profound about what we value.
Boil it all down, and there's just two messages loud and clear: convenience and low price. We care about that more than just about everything.
And that's exactly what grocery stores delivered. As a share of household income, Americans spend almost 70% less on food today than we did in 1947, while enjoying a wider range of products available wherever and whenever we want them. But making things easy and cheap for shoppers took a lot of hard work and weird science. Carl Sagan once said, if you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe. And it turns out, if you want to have crisp, delicious apples on the shelves all year round, you've got to invent artificial winter. The average American consumes 25 pounds of apples a year, and most of those apples are grown right here in Washington state. But here's the thing, most of those fresh apples you get from the market, they were picked months ago, or even longer.
The goal is to, whether you're eating an apple in August or June, July of the following year, to have that same consistent taste and crunch and snap every time you eat that piece of fruit.
Okay.
Nick Woodward is the CA Operations Manager for Superfresh Growers in Yakima.
The CA stands for Controlled Atmosphere,
Okay.
and we are standing in a CA room right now.
During the harvest, this facility can put more than 4 million apples into controlled atmosphere storage every day.
We use 99% pure liquid nitrogen to purge the oxygen out of the rooms, and we typically hold the fruit at about 1.5% oxygen. The whole point is to put the fruit asleep as fast as you can without killing it. So this room, Red Delicious, is being stored at 32.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Honeycrisp, a lot of people store them around 37 to 38.
In these cold, low oxygen conditions, an apple can be stored for a year or more with little effect on its flavor or texture. Once they emerge from storage, the apples move to a packing line. They get washed, dried, and photographed from every angle. Computers analyze those photos to identify defects and sort the fruit by size. An hour or so later, the apples reach the end of the packing line. Boxed, labeled, and ready to ship around the world. It's an industrial kind of magic, all designed to give us, the shoppers, the product we want on demand. But cold storage is bigger than apples. I first heard the term artificial winter from journalist Nicola Twilley, but the concept goes way back.
I like to think of it as like interspecies warfare, where the bacteria and the fungi are trying to get the food before us, and we have developed this whole array of weaponry. Smoking and drying, turning fruit into jams and jellies. You can ferment it, turn it into cheese. Cheese is milk's bid for immortality.
I never thought about it that way.
Exactly. Many of the most delicious things we eat are actually the result of humans desperately trying to figure out how to save perishable food.
But at the height of the Industrial Revolution, everything changed.
As with so many things in life, we have beer to thank.
Lager beer has to be brewed cold. And that meant figuring out a way to make cold on demand. In the 19th century, German inventor Carl von Linde designed the first mechanical refrigerator, which was soon adopted in breweries around the world. From beer to meat and dairy to produce and frozen dinners, artificial cold worked its way from producers to supermarkets and into our homes, creating a cold chain from farm to fork.
Before refrigeration, you don't get supermarkets. It's that simple.
But there's a cost.
The US already has 5.5 billion cubic feet of artificial winter that we've built for our food to live in, and it's growing exponentially. Cooling food uses an enormous amount of energy. It accounts for 8% of global electricity use already, and it has huge climate change emissions.
And as other countries scale up, the environmental toll could be catastrophic.
If the rest of the world builds a US-style cold chain, one expert said to me, there won't be a harvest to store in it.
Wow. Now, I'm not about to toss my refrigerator, but reducing our reliance on the cold chain makes sense. Not just for the planet, but for our taste buds too. Fresh seasonal produce, dried, pickled, and fermented foods that don't require a power source, honestly, that all sounds delicious. Now you might be thinking, Shane, Even if the grocery store had all those options, you probably wouldn't buy them. And you know what? You might be right. Join me in aisle 3, marketing. There's one special aisle of the grocery store, an aisle unlike any other. Its siren song echoes through the memories of generations of Americans. You know the one I'm talking about. For a kid, it's heaven on earth, and that kid lives inside every one of us. Low in sugar, high in fiber, packed with protein, all natural, prebiotic, and most importantly, it tastes dope.
Part of a complete breakfast for viewers like you.
Back to one.
God, that's cheesy.
It's supposed to be.
American food companies spend $14 billion a year on advertising, supporting a whole industry that's dedicated to titillating our taste buds through our screens. And it works.
All right, here we go, shooting. There we go. All right, trigger. Oh, look at that. Beautiful.
The birth of modern food marketing is tied to one product.
It actually started with cereal.
Meet Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Michael Moss. On the cello, he's just a beginner, but as an investigative reporter, Michael's a veteran. And his books on the food industry are New York Times bestsellers.
Turn of the century, there was this guy named John Harvey Kellogg, physician.
Americans were suffering from an epidemic called dyspepsia, an ailment of bloated, gaseous stomach aches related to their diet.
And at one point he came up with this cereal that was devoid of sugar and salt, and it had like whole grains, and all might have been fine, except he had a little brother named Will.
Will Kellogg was more interested in making money than his brother was. And he saw big business in cereal.
Dr. Kellogg is like off in Europe at some point, and Will's in charge. What if we just add like one extra element here? What would that do to sales? And of course that element was sugar. Sales went bonkers. The customers loved it. Dr. Kellogg came back and was appalled. They went to court twice over this.
That must be one of the most epic sibling fights in all of modern history.
Well, it was a fight over the health and well-being of like gazillions of people.
The Kellogg brothers had a rival. Inspired by their success, a man named C.W. Post began selling his own sweetened cereals.
What Post realized is that the real thing that could set him apart was like marketing.
Post launched some of America's earliest food marketing campaigns, and it paid off in millions. Over the 20th century, American food companies mastered food science, tapping into our biological craving for sugar, salt, and fat, and spent billions on advertising to make sure we never forgot their products when those cravings struck. And if giant corporations selling us addictive, unhealthy products with manipulative advertising sounds familiar, that's no coincidence.
Back in the 80s, the biggest tobacco company in the world, Philip Morris, was rolling in cash. Guess what they spotted as being a natural extension of their tobacco business? Processed food.
First, they bought food giant General Foods, followed by Kraft, and then Nabisco. By the early 90s, Philip Morris was the largest producer of food in the world.
And you can see through the documents, the tobacco guys lent some of their best marketing strategies to the food guys.
Today, most of the products on grocery store shelves are highly processed. Meanwhile, 1 billion people are living with obesity. and another 2.5 billion are overweight. That's up more than 40% since 1970. And research connects this trend and its many health consequences with the ubiquity of processed foods on supermarket shelves. And it's not just our health that's at stake when we decide what to buy at the supermarket. Our choices connect us with people and places a world away, in ways most of us never even think about. You might know Thailand for its delicious cuisine, but even if you don't love pad ki mao, you've probably tasted this country's bounty. Shrimp is now America's favorite seafood, and the secret behind that boom lies in the supermarket.
Hello.
Hey, Ben and Shane, how's it going?
Shane, how you doing?
Remember Ben Lohr, the Secret Life of Groceries guy? He's written a lot about shrimp and its fascinating road to seafood superstardom, courtesy of the grocery store.
How popular is shrimp in the U.S.?
Oh, it's our number one. Forget the salmon, tuna. Shrimp is America's seafood, and we put it in everything.
But it hasn't always been that way. Shrimp used to be a luxury item until a revolution in aquaculture made it possible to farm them at scale. In the 1990s, Thailand emerged as the world's top producer of farmed shrimp. Aquaculture might have stalled out, but producers discovered something truly bizarre. Cutting off a shrimp's eyes triggered an unexpected hormonal response that made the shrimp reproduce like crazy. With that breakthrough, production soared, prices fell, and demand exploded. Shrimp farms left toxic scars across Thailand and other shrimp farming countries. And there was another problem.
Shrimp are fundamentally carnivorous. It takes 2 pounds of wild-caught fish to raise 1 pound of shrimp.
The fishing industry, once focused only on edible seafood, began pulling everything they could out of the ocean. This indiscriminate fishing devastated fisheries close to shore and pushed the fleet further out to sea. And with demand for cheap shrimp surging, the industry discovered a new way to cut costs.
ในจานอาหารหรือว่าเห็นอะไรก็แล้วแต่ที่มันราคาถูกแล้วเกี่ยวข้องกับชีวิตเรา มันอาจจะมาจากคนที่ต้องถูกเอารัดเอาเปรียบก็ได้
Meet Patima Tungpachayakul. She finds peace perfecting traditional Thai dishes. But her true calling is helping people, no matter the risk. In the process, she and her group, the Labor Protection Network, have made enemies of some powerful institutions. So much so that we had to meet in secret.
LPN เราทำงานเกี่ยวกับเรื่องของการต่อต้านการค้ามนุษย์ในด้านแรงงานตั้งแต่ปี 2004 แล้วก็เราก็พบว่ามีแรงงานจากประเทศพม่าลาวกัมพูชาเนี่ยตกเป็นเหยื่อการค้ามนุษย์รวมถึงแรงงานไทยด้วยในอุตสาหกรรมประมงค่ะ
Facing a shortage of local workers willing to spend months at sea, the fleets turned to cheaper and more vulnerable sources of labor.
คือตอนแรกจะมีกระบวนการในหน้าเนาะที่หาคนเอาไปลงเรือเนี่ยคือในหน้าเนี่ยก็จะบอกว่างานดีทำแป๊บนึงก็จะได้เงินมากอะไรอย่างเงี้ย
So people are being actively recruited and brought in, and then once they're there, it's a completely different situation than they expected.
เป็นเหมือนเป็นทาสดีๆนี่เองซึ่งจะขอกลับบ้านก็ไม่ได้จะขอเงินเดือนก็ไม่ได้เจ็บป่วยก็เขาไม่รักษา
As a Black American, the word slaves brings up a lot of feelings for me. But it's hard to think of another word to describe this reality. People tricked into a brutal life where they're bought and sold to work long, unpaid hours under constant threat of violence or death. In 2014, Fatima and a team of journalists tracked ships, found men held in cages, and discovered remote Indonesian islands used as prisons for fishing industry slaves. Together, they rescued nearly 2,000 people. Some of the men Fatima helped were willing to share their stories. Fearing for his life, this man jumped off the boat. But his captors caught him and tied him to the deck for 7 days. He was tied for so long that his arm had to be amputated. Against his will, this man was put to work in Indonesia.
อันนี้ผมเห็นในเหตุการณ์นะครับอยู่ท้ายเรือก็คือทุบตีเลยแล้วก็โยนทิ้งลงน้ำใต้หลังเรือ
He was beaten mercilessly and witnessed many of his shipmates, his friends, killed and thrown overboard for misconduct. He worked under these conditions for years, fearing for his life if he tried to escape.
ทุกคนในโลกนี้ต้องรู้ว่ามันมีทาสยุคใหม่อะไรเงี้ย
And are we talking about hundreds of workers, thousands of workers?
คือเฉพาะเมืองไทยเนี่ยก็เป็นหลักหมื่นหลักแสนเนาะแต่ว่าถ้าเกิดการทำประมงทั่วโลกเนี่ย
Once the shrimp are packed and shipped, many of them destined for U.S. grocery stores, the stories of the workers disappear, erased in the uniformity of a commodity.
Is this a story that is specific to the shrimp industry?
Oh, I think it's an example of something much bigger. This NGO, Humanity United, did kind of an audit of various supply chains.
They found similar abuses in dozens of supply chains. Commodities like coffee, cattle, cotton, timber, palm oil, sugar.
All of those are as problematic as shrimp.
Today, an estimated 35 million people are enslaved, and millions of others live and work in abysmal conditions. Many of them toiling away to keep grocery store shelves stocked with affordable products.
Someone at checkout negotiating for a lower price, the importer negotiating for a lower price. All these requests for a lower price echoing through the supply chain, down, down, down. The bottom of the supply chain is where all of that pressure has been compounded. It takes on these ruthless, horrific attributes.
The truth is, convenience always comes at a cost. So what would it actually take to build something better? The grocery store is the nexus of our food system. It's the place that should connect us to how our food is made, but instead, it insulates us from it. And according to some experts, that's by design.
The food business is very good at getting someone else to pick up their tab.
For Raj Patel, fine art is a way to reimagine what the world can be. And as he's chronicled in his best-selling books, nothing needs reimagining more than our food system.
There may be a green aisle in your supermarket, and you'll go and you'll see all these labels, and you'll be like, oh God, do I want local? Do I want like organic? Do I want fair trade? Do I want dolphin-free? Do I want with dolphin? I don't understand. I give up. And in this moment, you are being broken by the individuating power of the supermarket.
Grocery stores basically ask us to vote with our wallets for the world we want to live in. And in doing so, they shift the responsibility away from billion-dollar corporations and onto individual shoppers, each of us doing our best to make good decisions, but in a system that obscures the consequences of our choices.
You shouldn't have to choose dolphin or not, slavery or not. We shouldn't have slavery in our food system. Why are you being asked to make the choice? It's not fair.
It's unfair in part because supermarkets don't exist to educate us. They exist to sell product.
they would be remiss to their shareholders if they weren't trying to maximize profit. So that's what they do. So they're there to cultivate not free choice, but impulse. And impulse is the opposite of a reasonable choice.
But are there really alternatives?
Literally a couple years ago, this was considered a food desert. So being able to bring fresh and accessible produce, vegetables, higher end meats is game changing.
Enter Detroit People's Food Co-op and its general manager, Akil Talley, a lifelong food guy. When the auto industry collapsed, half of the city's supermarkets closed and food deserts spread. So this co-op went hyper-local. The co-op's member owners decide what to carry and work with growers and producers in Detroit and across Michigan to stock a wide range of local products.
I'm a huge veggie guy, and my favorite thing right now is our D-Town local collards and the Swiss chard. Super fresh, super nutrient dense.
By forging relationships between food growers and consumers, the co-op celebrates the supply chain instead of hiding it. It's still a recognizable grocery store, but it's one that doesn't sacrifice its values at the altars of cost and convenience.
Not only are you buying something delicious, but you're also buying into the connections that you've made sort of all in one.
Yep, circulating that dollar back into the community. I feel like I'm putting in some kind of groundwork for what the future will look like for grocery stores.
And that groundwork is exactly that. It's work.
The funny thing about people is everybody wants things to change as long as they don't have to do anything different.
The co-op isn't a silver bullet, but it is an earnest attempt at a much-needed solution.
The fact that some people are taking back a power that we've sort of given away, I think it's a beautiful thing.
Supermarkets have trained us to believe that we can have it all. Whatever we want, where and when we want it. I know I've internalized that lesson, but after everything I've seen, I think it's one I need to unlearn. Because the convenience we crave comes at a cost we don't see at the checkout. We can do better, but it means changing our ways. People are great at reshaping the world. Now comes the hard part, reshaping ourselves. Thanks for watching. If you want more Human Footprint, you can tune in to the full-length series on the PBS app or on your local PBS station. Check out the link in the description to find out more about the show.